Hi, this is Gary Scott of Gary's Lens. You know, with COVID going on these days, everybody seems to need to get online, including churches that have had to shut their doors and keep everybody out. They want to keep their services going, have an opportunity to connect with people, and the best way to do that is through live streaming, but they haven't got a clue where to start. So I thought I'd make this little tutorial video and give you an idea how you can actually get going using some free software and free services to start streaming right away. The first thing you're going to need, of course, is a place to stream your videos to. An easy one is to use Facebook. Now, I've created this Facebook page, I know nothing, just as a test site for myself, but it's a good example and will help me show you exactly what I mean. You can use YouTube, you can use Facebook, there are other streaming services as well, but YouTube and Facebook are the most popular and are free services that you can use. Now, if you're going to use Facebook, I suggest that you create a new page, a place where you can have only posts for your church or your business or your events or whatever. That way, it's not going to interfere with your personal information, and it's going to be a place that has strictly information on your church or your place. We'll come back to this Facebook page a little bit later. The second thing you're going to need is OBS Studio. So you can find that very easily by doing a simple search. Once you get to the website, you're going to download the version of OBS Studio that you need for your system, whether that be Windows or Apple or Linux. And simply click the download installer. Most of these installers are pretty easy to use and people are pretty familiar with them, so I'm not going to go over how to do that. Once you have OBS Studio installed, we're going to start up the program. The first time you start it up, it's going to ask you some questions about configuring it. Would you like to run the auto configuration? Well, we're going to go ahead and do that. So we're going to go ahead and click yes. We're planning on streaming, so we're going to use optimize for streaming, record as secondary. And then we're going to come to a screen that requests information about what resolution you want to use. Now, depending on the platform that you're using, you're going to want to pick different resolutions. For Facebook, for instance, you're going to want to pick 1280 by 720. Because that's the standard resolution that it likes to use. Anything higher than that, and it may complain at you. We're going to go ahead and click Next again. Now on this screen, you can select which service you're using to stream to. Of course, you can select Facebook and YouTube, but there are plenty of other ones that you can use as well. You may also want to select something like Restream. This is a paid subscription you can use that will allow you to stream to multiple streaming services at the same time. For this example, I'm going to use Facebook Live. So we're going to select that one. Now on this screen, it's asking you for a stream key. Where do you find that? Well, if you say Get Stream, it will probably take you to your Facebook page, which is okay, nice and easy. But I'm just going to flip over to it now. So this is the Facebook page that we had created. Now, normally you would just create a post by clicking Create Post and typing or adding photos. But what we're going to do now is go to Live. When we go to Live, it's going to bring up all kinds of options and information for us about our live stream service. What we want to find on this window is the stream key. Simply click on Copy and it's copied to the clipboard. Now we go back to OBS. We're going to click on the stream key and paste it in with Control V or Command V on an Apple. And click Next. OBS is going to want to do a bandwidth test to make sure that it is going to be able to function properly when it's streaming. Let's go ahead and click Yes again. Don't panic if it takes a little bit of time though. Once it's complete, you will see the test results and you can go ahead and say Apply Settings. So now we're into the OBS application. Let's give you a quick little tour. The big black screen that you see on there is what is going to be live streamed. That's your program monitor. Down in the bottom left, there are various scenes. We're going to create some scenes in a moment, and you can see how those work. Sources are elements that you are going to put in your scenes. The audio mixer allows you to turn on and off audio that is being streamed or recorded, and to set the volume levels by changing the slider. Scene transitions allow you to create new transitions, and the controls on the right allow you to do other functions, such as starting and stopping the streaming, starting and stopping the recording, or going to your settings. When you're streaming, you can send the program monitor directly to the stream, and that's really all you need. But I prefer to use it in studio mode. Studio mode gives you a preview screen as well as your program screen, allowing you to see what scene is going to be played next. Okay, so now we have OBS up and running. Now it's time to start. The first thing we want to be able to do on a church stream is to see the pastor. So we're going to create a scene that is just for the pastor. So in the scene box, I'm going to add a new scene, and I'm going to label it Pastor. Labeling your scenes is important because it helps you find the right one to be able to go to next. Once I've created the scene, I need to start adding sources to it. The first source I'm going to add is a video capture device. Again, I have to give my source a name, and of course it makes sense to call it what it is. So in this case, I'm going to call it a webcam. If you have multiple devices hooked up to your computer, you may have to select the correct one from the drop-down list of devices. Otherwise, we're just going to ignore all of the rest of the settings for now and take them at default. So now we can go ahead and click OK. Now in the preview, you can see the webcam. What will be streamed is still being shown in the program monitor. What's in the preview monitor remains there until I move it over. I do that simply by clicking on Cut or by clicking on Fade. Either one will move what is in the preview monitor into the program monitor. Great, now you can get online and stream your video. But then you could do that with a webcam and Facebook directly. You don't need OBS. So what makes OBS different? Well, we're going to get into that now. First of all, your church may have a logo that you want to show as a watermark over your image. We can do that directly in OBS and add it to the image of the pastor being broadcast. With the pastor scene selected, we're going to add another source. This time we're going to add an image. And we're going to call that logo. Now we have to go and find an image file of the logo. Now I'm going to suggest that you use a PNG file. The difference between a PNG and a JPEG is you can have transparency in the background of the PNG. If you use a JPEG, whatever is in the back of the image will be displayed on the picture in OBS. A PNG with a transparent background will allow us to overlay it without that background showing. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Now you see that that image is way too big for the screen. So I'm going to grab the little red handle in the corner, and I'm going to start resizing and shifting it. So I grab the red handle and drag it to reduce the size. I grab the middle to be able to move it. And I'm going to keep doing that until I have it the right size and in the right place. Now I could put that anywhere I want. It can be any of the corners, whichever corner I prefer, or I can even place it somewhere to obscure my face if I want, because I don't want people having to see my face. But let's not do that. So we're going to put the watermark down in the right-hand corner. Now when I cut to go live by clicking Cut, that logo is on my program screen as well. And again, if I were streaming, that's what would be going out. So again, wonderful, we are showing the pastor. But what if we want to show a video? For instance, if you have musicians in your church who can pre-record music for you, you want to put that into your live stream. Now I do want to just say, be careful. Make sure that you have license to be able to use the music that you're using before you put it into the live stream. If you're a church, CCLI has an amazing license that you can purchase for online broadcasting, and it covers you in that instance as well. So let's go ahead and add some music to our scenes. So back in OBS, let's create a new scene. This one we're going to call Song Still. Still being the name of the song that I'm going to insert. Now that I have a blank scene, I can add some media. Here I'm going to give it a name as well. Now notice that I didn't give it the same name. OBS will not let you use the same name twice. So I'm calling this one video because it's the media, and the other one song because it's the scenes. Again, I get to choose which file. Now I don't have to change any of the options here, but I just want to point out a couple of them. Make sure that restart playback when source becomes active is checked. You don't want the source to start halfway through the song each time you bring it up. Let's go ahead and click OK. Now if your videos are like mine and you have a black beginning to the video, it may appear like this, but don't panic. It is actually there. Do you see the little red handle in the top left corner? Unfortunately, you can't resize that, and if you click on it, you're not actually going to click the media. There is a little bit of a way around that though. When we're building it, let's cut it to the live, and you can see the video actually starts to play. If I go back now and click on the scene, I see it in the left-hand window. Now when I click on it, I can see all the handles. So let's go ahead and drag the handles to make the video fit the box. Now when I say cut, the video will play in the other window. So now we're able to show ourselves in the live stream and show videos that we can add in one at a time. We do that simply by clicking on each of the elements and saying cut. If you don't like the cut because it's a little bit too strong, you can always use fade. Now let's say that you want to play some announcements before you actually start your service online. So let's create an announcement reel. To do that, we're going to create another scene. And of course, we're going to call it Announcements. Now to create the announcement slides, we're going to use PowerPoint. Most pastors and other people now have PowerPoint available or some other program similar to it that they can create slides on. So let's flip into PowerPoint. Okay, let's start a new presentation. Again, most people know how to use PowerPoint, so this is not going to be a tutorial about using PowerPoint. I will, however, point out something that is very important. If we're broadcasting in 16:9, we want to make sure that our PowerPoint slides are that same size. You do that within Design and changing the slide size. You can pick 16:9, 4:3 if you wanted to broadcast in 4:3, or pick custom size if you wanted to do something more unusual. Create each slide as you normally would, keeping in mind that each one is going to be an image that is displayed on the screen. Once you have your PowerPoint slides all created, we're going to go ahead and save it. Once you have a good copy saved so that you can go back and edit it, now we're going to say Save As. This time, instead of saving it as a PowerPoint presentation, we're going to save it as JPEG. When we say Save, it's going to ask if you want to save all slides or just this one. Let's say all slides. Now within the folder where you saved your slides, there will be another folder which has each of them as a JPEG. So let's go back to OBS Studio. Selecting our announcements scene, we're going to add another source. This time we're going to select Image Slideshow. And again, we're going to give it a name. I just want to point out a couple of options here before we move on. The first one is to make sure that the slide mode is automatic. That means the slides will automatically advance from one to the next. The transition, you can select cut, fade, swipe, or slide. And then you can select the timing. If you want it to be 5 seconds, you would make it 5,000 milliseconds. And 4,000 would be 4 seconds, and so on. And then the length of the transition that you want. This one's fine. We're also going to tell it to loop so that when it gets to the end of the slides, it's going to start over again. And if you like to, you can randomize them so they don't always appear in the same order. Scrolling down to the very bottom is where we are going to select our image files. Now that our slides are selected, we're going to go ahead and press OK. Now it may be that you want to run these slides for announcements before you actually start the service. It's also a good way to build your audience before you actually start the service because they can know that you're streaming and be on the live stream before you actually start. but we want them to know how long it is until you're actually going to start. So let's add a countdown. The first thing you need to do for a countdown is add some text. In the text field, we better add something so we can see what it actually looks like. I'm going to add 0 minutes, 0 seconds. The font looks fine, but let's change it to be bold. White is okay, but it doesn't really jump off the page, so I'm going to select yellow. And just to class it up a little bit, I'm going to add a gradient and select orange as the other color. I'm going to tell it that I want the alignment to be right, because I want the numbers always to be pushed to the right. And I'm going to add an outline. Black. And let's just make it a little bit bigger. Now I have my numbers. And the same as I did with the logo, I can move it around to the place wherever I want it, and I can resize it. Now that's fantastic. I've got a number up there, but it doesn't change. So it's not really a countdown yet. Now we need to go to Tools and Scripts. Under Scripts, I'm going to add Countdown. These ones come with OBS, so yours will have it too. Let's select it. We're going to tell it we want a 10-minute countdown. And we want it to end with the text 00:00. And for this text source, we're going to select the countdown text that we had created. Now it still looks like nothing's happening, but if we say cut, you can see the countdown going down. Unfortunately, though, we're only seeing the minutes. The seconds are off to the side. So let's go back to the scene, the announcement scene. We can see now that it's off to the right. So we're just going to pull that to the left to where we want it to be, maybe reduce the size just slightly. And by using the Alt key, I can crop in from the one side. You see the green line? And I'm going to bring that right over to the edge of that number. Now when I say cut, I only see those numbers. Okay, that's great, but that's not the order that I want to see things in. I want the announcements to be shown first, and the rest of it to come later. So I'm going to click on Announcements, and I'm going to move it up. Scene is really just a black screen, so I don't even really need that one. I will move that one to the bottom. I'm going to have the announcements, and then I'm going to have myself show up, and then I would like to play the song, and then I'd like to go back to me. That's awesome. We're all set, right? Okay, but one more thing. Most pastors use slides on a screen behind them these days. So how do we do that on OBS? Well, as before, we're going to create another scene. This one we're going to call Sermon Slides. The same way we created slides for the announcements, we're going to create our PowerPoint slides for our message. Remember to save it first as a regular PowerPoint file so that you can edit it again later, and then secondly as a JPEG. Okay, back to OBS. We're going to add another slideshow. This time we're going to call it Slides Sermon. Now this time we want to make sure that we change the slide mode to manual because we don't want the slides advancing on us automatically until we're ready for them to go. We want to be able to select when we move to the next slide. We can still select the transition type and the transition speed, and we don't need it to loop or randomize. We're going to add our image files and click OK. Now this is good, but when we cut, how do we move our slides ahead? There doesn't seem to be any way, right? Wrong. We need to set some keystrokes to be able to move forward and back. So let's go to File, Settings. In the settings, we can change the hotkeys. This allows us to set keys for all kinds of things. For instance, if we wanted to quickly move to a particular song, we can create a hotkey that switches to that scene. Let's give it S for the song. What we really want to do is be able to set hotkeys, though, to move forward and backwards through the slides. So let's move on down to where we have Slides Sermon. In here, we can select the next and previous slide keys, or restart if we wanted to as well. Let's give restart an R. Next slide, we can make that N. Previous slide, we can make it P. You can make them anything you want. Maybe we don't want to make it N and P. We want to be able to use the arrows because they're on the bottom of our keyboard and it's a lot easier to use those. Just select that keystroke and press the right key or the left key. When you're all done, click OK. Now when we cut into the sermon slides, we can use the right key to move forward, the left key to move back, and if we're partway through and we want to restart, we can press the R key. At any point, if we wanted to move to the song, we can press the S key and then click Cut. But most pastors don't like just having the slides up through their sermon. They'd like people to be able to see them as well. How do we do that? Easy. Let's bring sermon slides back up into the preview window. Now what we're going to do is add a Windows capture device. Now we already created the webcam, so all we have to do is click Add Existing and select the webcam. And there's my ugly face again. It's taking up the whole screen though, and that's not really what we want either. So let's grab those handles one more time, drag it smaller and move it to where we want it to be. We can select how big it is, what placement it is. Just make sure when you're creating your slides you have an idea of where you're going to place that so that you keep that space open and don't cover something up. Now when we cut or fade, we have that video on top of our slides. Okay, all good. One more thing though before we move on. We have all of our scenes selected, but we need to make sure that the audio is going to be correct for each one of them. So let's start going through them. When we go to announcements, and this is before we're broadcasting, of course, remember, we're going to cut that in and we can see the audio that is set for the announcements. Right now, desktop audio and mic are on, but we don't want either one of those. So we're going to mute both of those. Now I might like to have some music playing in the background. So how do I do that? Just the same as I've done everything else. You might have somebody in your congregation or somewhere that can record music for you. Again, be careful of copyright. Make sure that you're licensed to be able to use it. Once you have that music recorded, it's easy to insert it as a piece of media. Okay, so at this point, I actually ran into a little glitch, something that I better warn you about. So first of all, let's select the announcements reel. And then we're going to say plus and media source because we want to add the music. Now here's where the problem occurs. If I put S in here, it moves me to the song because I used the hotkey S to be able to change that scene. We don't want to do that. So let's cancel that a second. So let's go back to announcements. We're going to hit plus again and media source. I'm going to call it intro net. I'm doing that because net is the name of the song. Or safety net actually, but I can't use the S still. Let's go ahead and click OK. And then I'm going to browse for the file. Now a couple of things in here. I may want it to loop because I'm not sure how long it is unless I know exactly it's 10 minutes and I'm going to stop it at the end of the 10 minutes. I'm going to make sure it loops after it's finished. We want it to restart so the music starts every time we start the loop again. And the rest should be all okay. Now we have that music in our announcements. I'm going to cut it across so that I can see the audio. And you can see the volume is playing there. I can adjust the volume so that it plays at the right level. Now notice something else here. We still have desktop audio playing and we have the mic playing. Now I don't want either of those to show up during my intro, so I'm going to hit the mute. Now when I go to that scene, it's only going to play the music and you won't hear anybody talking in the background. We better check the rest of them to do the same thing. So let's go to the pastor view and we'll make sure that we only have the one we want. Now in my case that would be mic. I don't want the webcam and I don't want the desktop audio. How about the song still? Let's cut to that. We can see we've got that playing. That's okay. We've turned off desktop audio and we don't want the mic there either because then I can talk while the song is actually playing. Now we're going to go to the sermon slides, check out the same thing. I got nothing playing there. Well, that would not be good because then my sermon, nobody would actually hear it. I'm going to turn on the mic again. So now all of our audio sources should be set as well. and we're ready to go. So let's have a trial run. So back on the Facebook page, you remember we copied the streaming key. Now, if you're not sure that the streaming key is correct when you start your next week's sermon, you can always go back and do this again. So let's click on copy to copy that stream key. Then we're going to go back to OBS. We're going to click on File and Settings, go to Stream, and in here we can reinsert the key. So select the old one and paste with Control V again. Okay. So now we have the key all set again. When you want to start streaming, you simply click Start Streaming. Now, if you want to record at the same time, you can also click Start Recording. But I'm just going to show streaming right now. So let's go ahead and click Start Streaming. If I flip back to the Facebook page, you can see now it is connecting the live video. It does take a few seconds. There is a few seconds delay, but that's okay. Now, right now, if I look at my OBS, there is nothing being shown. That's why I see nothing on here. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start with the announcements. We're going to cut that in, and then over here we should see real soon the timer begin. Now I can say go live. Now I'm not actually going to go live because I don't want that showing up on the Facebook page, but if you were going live, you want to make sure you hit that go live, otherwise you are not live. Back on the Facebook page, if you wanted to check the health of that stream, you can click Stream Health, and you can actually see some ongoing statistics of what everything's looking like. Okay, back to OBS. So now we're going to wait for our timer to go down, and of course we can keep talking in the background. Nobody's actually going to hear us because you remembered to mute it, right? You can always double check if you want to. Okay, once the timer gets to 0, then it's go time and you're ready to go. Of course, being a friendly pastor you are, you want to cut in and you want to welcome people. So we are going to go back to OBS again. We're going to select pastor and we're going to cut that in. And we're going to be very friendly and say, hello everybody, how are you doing? We're going to give them a nice greeting and we're ready to go to the next thing. Next we want to be able to share with the song. So we're going to tell them about the song and we're going to start that. So let's select song in OBS and then we are going to fade that in. And away the song goes. It's starting to play. While that song is playing, we can line up the next thing, which of course is going to be us again. So we've got Pastor lined up. When we get there, we fade across. We can give another greeting. Now we actually want to get into our sermon. So we're going to select sermon slides, and then we're going to select fade again. Now our sermon slides are up. Now remember, we put those keystrokes in there so that we can advance and go back on the slides. So now if I press the right arrow, the slide moves forward. If I press the left arrow, the slide goes back. I can move through all of my slides. Once I'm finished my sermon, if I want to go back to myself again, I just have pastor up and I can click fade. Now I'm back to the full screen view. Anytime while the slides are going on, if I want to go back just to myself and remove the slides, it's just as easy as hitting that fade button to go back and forth. So you can see it's easy to create new scenes and cut back and forth between them. You can have videos, you can have slideshows, you can have your sermon slides, you can have yourself over the sermon slides, anything basically that you want to be able to put into your live stream. One thing though, make sure you plan ahead, because if you forget something, it can be difficult to add it in on the fly, especially if you're trying to speak. It is possible though. For instance, now that the message is done and I'm finished, I actually want to end by showing those announcement slides again. So let's do that. Okay, so we're back in OBS and I'm going to just click on the announcements, which is basically what I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate that. Now I have an ending announcements. Now why did I duplicate it? Well, because it has the timer on there, and I don't really want a countdown timer at the end. So I'm just going to click on the timer and delete it. Now I can go ahead and fade that over, and my announcement slides are there at the end. So now you've got your end announcements running. That's great. Don't forget, you have to end it. So let's go back to OBS again. We're finished. We've left it enough time. Maybe we've gone back to Facebook and we've checked and all of our viewers are starting to drift off, so it's okay. And then we can hit stop streaming. Now in this case though, the video stops almost immediately. So if you are actually doing something, it is best to go back to Facebook and double check that your video is to the point where you want it to stop before you actually stop the stream. I hope you found this tutorial informative, and if there's any questions you have or some of those pieces that you would like to see more detail on, then please leave a comment below or contact me, and we'll try and do that for you. I'm Gary Scott from Gary's Lens. If you have any media needs, if you need to live stream an event, I'm able to do that as well using a number of tools, even remotely. So be sure to look me up, www.garyslens.com or www.garyscott.photography. Take care.